for conversations with the players, coaches and contributors that make this game great.
Regulators, mount up. We're coming.
Football Convos.
Okay, March 19th, 2015, here we are in Football Convos. Like we mentioned earlier, we're going to start going a little draft-specific here. We'll do a position a week here. I'm going to start, obviously, quarterbacks. Always, obviously the moneymaker, the biggest one to talk about. Maybe this year's class doesn't bring as much, good speak as others have. But we're going to talk quarterbacks for me. My mind goes to one guy, so we were able to reach out, get Mr. Ben Allbright, be nice enough to join us here. We're going to start breaking down some quarterbacks, how to scout them, what you're looking for, what you're hoping to not see, and then we'll get into some of these individual players as we break it down a little bit more. First off, let me introduce Mr. Ben Allbright from Mile High Sports Radio out in Denver. Ben, how you doing today, buddy?
Outstanding, brother. How about yourself?
I'm not too shabby, just putting this together here. We've been interviewing former players, coaches. We're going to definitely go draft-specific here, so glad for your time here today. Ben, how's everything going out at Mile High Sports?
It's going pretty well. The weather's a little crummy right now, but other than that, things are great.
Yeah. The weather, we all got to deal with it as we went back to the 20s here in New Jersey. Hopefully not much longer. We can start getting back to the normalcy. But the good news is as winter ends, spring picks up, and obviously NFL draft talk reaches the all-time high. Ben, as obviously, you've made your case, obviously, that you've been following the quarterback position and grading out players at that position for a long, long time. Do me a favor here and just explain to people, what exactly are you looking for when you're going through the tape on these guys?
Well, I'm looking for a series of benchmarks. I'm looking like, can this guy make the throws? Does he have the tools to execute at the next level? A lot of guys are looking for production. A lot of guys are looking for, what this guy's doing now. I'm not looking for that. I'm looking for what can this guy become? Does he have the base set to become something at the next level? If college production translated to NFL ability, we'd be sitting here talking about Hall of Famers Timmy Chang, Colt Brennan, and Cliff Kingsbury. Production is less relevant to me than the ability to make all the throws accurately and on time, do it efficiently and effectively, and then have the plus tools, the intangibles, the athleticism, things like that.
I got you. Now, as you were putting out your chart, so, you're always dropping it this week. For you, I noticed that there's three things that you're always hitting on, and I just want to get into that real quick. One, obviously, you hit on is the age of 23 at time drafted. Why do you feel that is so important that a quarterback cannot be older than that age?
Well, I have 40 thresholds, and that doesn't mean that the quarterback will be successful if he meets those thresholds, but if he doesn't meet those thresholds, the data shows he will not be. That one of those is that age threshold of 23. If you are older than 23 on draft day, history tells us you will not be successful in the NFL. Over the last 21 years, the most successful example of a quarterback who was 24 or older on draft day is David Garrard. After that, there's nobody. Chris Winkie is the second guy in career average value. So if you're that old on draft day, something obviously happened to you where you were not good enough to declare younger, and that's a problem.
Okay. Also, maybe you were a transfer, which means you didn't win a job somewhere else, so you had to go chasing after playing time somewhere else. Also, now, do you feel development is something that's going to be key there with the age as well? Is it the time where I don't know if I can change you much, if any?
Yeah, you have an accelerated curve on which you have to grasp the speed and concepts of the NFL game. When you look at these guys, like I said, it all boils down to they simply weren't good enough to jump to the NFL prior to that, or they didn't feel they were. That's the bottom line. Whether it be transfers, whether they're on a mission in another sport, whatever, they simply weren't good enough to make it prior to that, and unfortunately, given the limited timeline, are unlikely, and by unlikely I mean extremely unlikely to succeed at the NFL level.
Okay. Now, the other one you hit on, obviously, and it's weird because not many, you don't always hear miles per hour too much, discussed when we're talking about the speed that the football is traveling at. But for you have the 55-mile-an-hour marker. And it's odd to see guys who do hit it and the guys who don't hit it because, normally, with anything, you think the bigger, the stronger the guy is, the easier it is to hit the 55 miles an hour. Just go into that a little bit and how it, correlates, from college to Sundays.
Well, you've got to have the velocity to be able to drive the ball in there. In the college, the game is spread out more horizontally. You have the wider hash marks, so you get a wider field. The game's spread out. There's more space to create. You can drop a ball in there with less velocity. But in the pro game, those windows don't exist. Guys aren't open. You have to throw them open. That was one of the things Peyton Manning said his first season in the league. He called his dad, Archie, up, and he said, hey, these guys aren't open. And Archie laughed and said, I know. You have to throw them open. That's what you do. So you have to have requisite velocity to be able to do that. Now, 55 miles an hour, lower than 55 miles an hour on the radar at the combine, by far, and I mean it's way the most successful example is Chad Henne, and I would hardly call that an example of success of somebody who threw less than 55 miles an hour at the combine. So that's been my cutoff there. Some people use the sports science measurement, which is exactly 4 miles an hour behind where the radar gun at the combine is. We have 12 examples that are exactly 4 miles an hour off to give us a baseline there. So velocity is something it's very important. If you don't have it, you're not going to be able to squeeze the ball in at the pro level, and it'll surprise you. Some guys who pass that threshold and some guys who don't, it'll shock you.
Absolutely, and you saw obviously Sims down in Alabama with a 42, which it's almost unheard of, and you almost question how a guy was able to even succeed. Obviously with all the players he had at Alabama, but basically throwing change-ups like that, it's amazing he had any success whatsoever at the college level. Correct?
Yeah, it's scheme. Scheme is what gave him that success. When you look at, Sims broke the record for slowest throw at the combine this past year, 42 miles an hour. Colt Brennan was the previous holder at 44. I compared Blake to Alex Smith in a running back's body, and that's kind of what he was. It's amazing what Lane Kiffin did with him, moving pieces around to make sure he got guys open and gave him big enough windows to throw into.
Okay, and then the last one before we start getting into some players themselves is obviously hand size. You have it at 9 1/8 is kind of the cutoff. Anything less than that, you're really going to kind of back away. Just go a little bit into that, and maybe some guys who maybe have surprised you as far as how it hurt them or how it helped them. That obviously that the hand size came into a good number.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys with lower hand sizes. The lowest to succeed in the NFL would be Michael Vick. His was 8 3/4 inches, give or take, for his hand size. He's the lone example of somebody not to meet that threshold and succeed in the NFL. You get into the 9 1/8 guys, like Colin Kaepernick has 9 1/8 hands. You got to have bigger hands to grip the football, especially if you're a cold weather or windy team. It's all the little things that you do can take velocity off the football, can take the tight spin off the football. You want to make sure you get it out with good zip and get it out clean, and anything you can do from your mechanics to your hand size and getting that grip is vital. So if you have a hand size that's smaller than about 9 1/8 of an inch, you're just not going to be able to do it. I mean, my hands are 9 1/4, and I know it's a struggle for me at times when I'm out there throwing the football to get it in the way I want to. So you definitely do not want to go below those levels.
Okay. We're going to start getting in here. Obviously, quarterback for this draft, at the beginning, it's a two-top heavy. Obviously, if you're living under a rock, you don't know who those two gentlemen are at this point. But we'll start it off, obviously, me being the lifelong Florida State fan that I am. It's been a roller coaster of a ride, and I mean, I'm probably being kindly with the world and the track that Jameis Winston's been on. Give us some thoughts on the game here, and obviously, we know that, obviously there's risks, that go along with the on-field talent.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip the off-field stuff with Jameis and just kind of focus on the on-field, because I think that off-field's been hashed to death. I don't think this is a good draft for quarterbacks at all. When you look at the guys that are available in this draft, I mean, my pro comparisons for Mariota and Winston, who are the two top quarterbacks in this draft, are Alex Smith and Josh Freeman. That's who these guys compared to. I know everybody's jaw-dropping and saying Winston's this, that, and the other, but Winston had elite talent around him. He had a humongous talent advantage against every program. He should have rolled it up against every one of them. And maybe people were just, were surprised by what he was able to do, having seen Christian Ponder and E.J. Manuel there previously. I don't know, but Winston's a decent quarterback, and he's a decent quarterback prospect, but I would hardly call him good, generational, or great.
Okay, now, obviously all the buzz right now with Jameis is obviously, as far as Tampa and the fit down there. I mean, do you like it as a fit, or do you think there's a better team in the NFL which probably would be better suited for him?
Well, he's a better fit in a place like Arizona or Tennessee that wants to go vertical, wants a guy that'll squeeze it in, that'll stay in the pocket, hammer it home there. I don't think he's as great a fit for Dirk Cutter's offense. Now, Dirk has traditionally used big guys with big arms, but his best fit was Matt Ryan. I don't think he's the best fit in Tampa. I really don't, and that's nothing against the kid. I just don't think he's a great fit there. He's going to probably get his shot there. We'll see, but that would not be the move I would make if I were Tampa.
The other thing that scares me a little bit with the whole Tampa thing is here's a team, it's already lost 3 free agents that they signed 1 calendar year ago. Obviously, Lovie Smith, a retread hire down there. The first year blew up in their faces. Here they are, drafting number 1 overall. So you got to wonder, if it goes in and this season doesn't go so well, now you have a second-year quarterback and you could have an entire new staff. So that's definitely something, I'm a little concerned with him going there. I'd rather he go where it's, the situation is new, whereas, Lovey's there and maybe it's already starting to look a little sour because it got progressively worse from the season before. So that's, some thoughts I have and concerns I have about him moving on down to Tampa. Next here, Marcus Mariota. Almost the opposite as far as the travels in the off-field wise. Everything's been perfect with him. Now we're getting to the point where anybody's looking to find any reason, to nitpick somebody, and, we're starting to hear a little bit on that now. But give me some thoughts here on Marcus, and, had a pretty remarkable career out there in Eugene.
Yeah, Marcus has got plus athleticism, all the intangibles, squeaky clean off field. The concerns most people have to do with transition to a pro-style offense, calling traditional plays instead of using cue cards and not using that hurry-up, no-huddle attack. I'm not as concerned about that as most people. I look at Cam Newton, who did the same thing down at Auburn, a little bit different system with that zone run. But, he made the transition just fine. Has he had some problems? He had some hiccups here or there? Yeah, but other than that, he's been pretty good. He caught on pretty quick, and I have no doubt that Marcus Mariota can do the same. He does have the plus athleticism, which is kind of nice. I always view that as an extra. I never factor that into an evaluation, and I think that too many people do and have made mistakes on uber athletic quarterbacks over the years. So while that's a bonus for me, it's not a baseline.
Yeah, ideally the last thing you want is, your franchise quarterback, running around in the middle of linebackers and, 220-pound safeties who make their money on knocking these guys out. So it is nice that on a 3rd and 9, if it all breaks down, you can pick up 11. But ideally, we're looking for a guy to find an open receiver and complete a pass. I want to get a couple of the middle area guys. Obviously, Mariota and Winston, they've gotten, obviously, all the hype in the world and all the talk in the world. So we chose 4 guys here. One is a guy that I know you've been pretty high on, but trying to, obviously, help get his name out there from CSU Pueblo, and that's Chris Bonner. Big, strong, talented, everything you're looking for. It's just going to come down to, the competition he played to get. Can he make the next progression? But what drives you to a guy like Bonner, and what do you see there that, you think is going to transition into possibly a good shot for him in the league?
Well, I see a guy who's got all the potential in the world. He's raw. He was a tight end at a tiny high school in California. Played a year at quarterback, maybe 2, and he played junior college ball before getting 2 years at D2 Pueblo. In that time, he lost 2 games, at Pueblo in 2 seasons. He's D2 national champ. He's a winner, 6'6", 230, huge arm. He's a bit stiff. He's a bit robotic. He needs his mechanics cleaned up, but overall, the potential is through the roof, and if you can find a team that's willing to put 2 years in him, it could pay big dividends. So I think he's a guy that could really pay some huge dividends on day 3, which is likely where he gets picked.
Now, if you were able to hand put him on a roster, where do you think would be the best, and maybe you can maximize the potential that this young man has?
Arizona, absolutely. He's a perfect fit for Bruce Arians. That's exactly where I'd drop him.
And, obviously with Palmer there, he wouldn't be obviously, asked to, contribute anything immediately. So, no, definitely understand the fit there. Obviously, and like you said, the 6'6", 230, everyone's going to draw the eyes to it. And a class like we were saying, it's not a very great quarterback class. So which means that, you almost have to go with the, leave no stone unturned. You got to go look for everybody. Is there a guy you're missing? Just because it isn't a top-heavy quarterback doesn't mean there aren't some guys who eventually could turn out to be some players. Next, I want to take it down to Waco. Bryce Petty. Interesting year. Probably came into the season, had a real good shot at maybe even, being a Heisman Trophy finalist himself. Obviously, the back injury derailed all that. Good year for the Bears, for the most part as far as success. Give me some thoughts here on Bryce Petty. He's a guy now that, seems to be getting getting the stage to himself right now, and everybody seems to want to bump it up a little higher than he probably should be. You're hearing some murmurings of, first-round talk, which will come along with obviously just having his pro day 2 days ago. But Bryce Petty here, give me some thoughts.
Bryce Petty is a guy I want to love. I was going last year.
It seems everybody is that same way.
Yeah, he's got he makes such great bucket throws. He drops the ball in so well, places the ball well, puts good spin, good touch on it, things like that. He did fail the velocity threshold when he hit 53 miles an hour on the gun, which was surprising to me. And then he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie coming off a bad back. And I don't know about you, but how many guys that used to have a bad back? So that's probably something that's going to be troubling him for the rest of his career. I look at him and I want to like him, but the bottom line here is he fails two of the threshold checks that we have. It's a screaming bust pick. Much as I want to love him, you got to stay away from that and hold true if you've got thresholds like that.
I gotcha. Now, again, give me a good fit and give me oh my God, I hope he doesn't go there fit.
Okay. He's a guy I think could look really good in San Diego. I think that system would take advantage of his strengths and minimize his weaknesses. And I think he's a very poor fit for a team like Tennessee, for instance.
Okay. Now, obviously, two more guys we wanted to get to here, and like we said, there's not much to look for here. I mean, quarterback-wise, it's not deep. Obviously, we had 4 guys go last year. I guess it was the top 35 or so. Probably not going to see that this year. But Colorado State, a program now that's starting to, year in, year out, produces 2 to 3 players. Garrett Grayson, obviously, you're familiar with it. Obviously, out there in the Mile High area. So go into depth here for me a little bit on him and his game, please.
Oh, absolutely. Grayson's got a couple of nagging injuries. Going to be a problem. He's got a lean frame. That's going to be a problem. He's another one that's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. Didn't throw at the combine, but I suspect his velocity wouldn't pass the threshold check if he was on the gun. He's got kind of a middling arm. I mean, he's a guy that was successful building off of play action, off a strong run game from CSU. I think he's he's a guy who's going to stay in the league for a while, but he's a career number 2, spot start ability. Compare him, in his limitations to a Trent Dilfer when all's said and done. If you have a strong defense, you can win with him, but he's not a guy that's going to put a team on his back.
No, probably not. But like we said, did well for himself out in Colorado State. You look at a guy like, Hasselbeck still cashing checks. There's nothing wrong with being a number 2 quarterback. You can have yourself a nice little living wearing that baseball hat, make yourself some good coin. The third, Brian Bennett. It's kind of funny. Here we go for from one Duck to a former Duck. Brian Bennett, the quarterback, former Oregon. Give me what you got on him, Ben. He was one that I didn't bring up. You actually brought up to mention. So I was curious your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think Brian Bennett's probably the sleeper of this draft. I think everybody's too low on him. He's probably going to get drafted. He passed every one of the threshold checks. Has a huge arm at 60 miles an hour. You didn't always see that on tape. But 60 miles an hour ties Kaepernick and Logan Thomas for top billing on the cannon of an arm there. He's a guy that transferred from Oregon because of Mariota, but he's been successful in his own right. We saw him pick those Louisiana teams up, put them on his back, and carry him. And I like to see that. I like to see a quarterback that elevates the talent around him, and he did that. So I think he's a guy who's got a home in the league. He's got quick feet. He reads the field well. He's got good arm. He's got good accuracy. I think he could succeed in the league. He's just a guy who maybe needs a year or two.
Okay, I'm just going to add one more to the list here because, with all the guys, we pretty much hit on most of them. There's no reason not to bring his name into this. Brett Hundley, UCLA, got some good athletic traits to him. I saw that, speed-wise didn't hit the gun where you wanted him or you feel he needed to be. Give me some thoughts, athletic quarterback at UCLA.
I think too many people are focusing on that. Most people who like Brett Hundley talk about what Brett can become and not what he has shown that he is. Now, don't get me wrong, we're trying to project guys to the next level and do that, but almost all that's a mystery. Almost all people are saying he's going to become this when he's never shown it. He has a lot of tools. He has the athleticism. He has the arm. He didn't pass the velocity check, which was, troubling to me. I thought he'd be borderline, but he was 2 miles an hour off, which may not sound like a lot, but 2 miles an hour is about 4% drop in velocity. That's a pretty significant drop in velocity. I just, he's raw. The offense that he played in didn't really prep him for the pro game. I worry about his ability to succeed at the NFL level. I think he's going to be kind of a one-dimensional guy. Kind of reminds you maybe of Vince Young, slightly better passer, slightly less athletic. But I don't think that he's going to succeed at the NFL level.
The thing for me is, it's for an athletic guy, he gets sacked way too much. So I almost wonder, does he have blinders? Doesn't sense the rush? Because, I mean, if anything, you normally, when you're talking about an over-athletic quarterback, the problem is stay in the pocket, use your athleticism last. I don't know, I just can't see how a kid with his type of athleticism gets sacked the way he does. It just kind of find it a little mind-boggling. It's just, so I don't know, maybe it was a system out there. Where does he work? Where does he work? Does he work in Philly? Where's the system in the NFL where maybe you can get something out of him?
People trying to peg into Philly. I think his best fit is probably with former Philly coach Andy Reid over in Kansas City. An offense that's going to run a lot of pick routes that he can, key off, run keyed reads like that and then just take off and run like they let Alex Smith do, be efficient with the football, that kind of thing. I think that's probably his best fit.
Okay, now the speed gun, I just want to get to this one time. Obviously, we brought up Blake Sims. Who is maybe one guy that you can remember who probably was the highest?
The highest, the record belongs to Logan Thomas.
And that was?
60 miles an hour.
Oh, so Brian Bennett's right there then for strongest?
Yes,
okay.
Tied the record.
Okay, so, I mean, now it seems, just kind of weird how you talk about it, but you go from 42 miles an hour with one quarterback prospect to 60 miles an hour with another. And like you said, 2 miles an hour, 84%, and then you do the math on the 18. That it just shows, I mean, it's amazing the ball almost stays in the air then for a guy like Sims. I want to get here.
Yeah, they said Colt Brennan when he was throwing at 44 was throwing with underhanded speed. So
slow pitch softball. Okay, I want to do just basically some one answer questions back and forth here. If out of this entire quarterback class, who would you possibly, if you had to guess one and pick one, who would be a Super Bowl winner? Who would take his team and win a Super Bowl?
Ooh, that's a good question. If you can give some of these projects enough time, give me Bonner or Bennett. If I had to pick one of the guys that's going to be starting right away, I would say Mariota.
Okay. Now, one quarterback in this class one day goes on to be an NFL MVP. Who is it?
Oh, none of them. I really can't see anybody in this class ever becoming an MVP.
That's all right. That's all right.
I can't.
Okay. Do any of them possibly even sniff a Pro Bowl?
Maybe it's like the fourth alternate, kind of the way Vince Young got in that one year. You could see Winston or Mariota doing that. I don't think either one of them are going to be Pro Bowl type quarterbacks, though.
Okay. Now, first quarterback who is drafted in this class that will be released from the team who drafted him.
That's a good question. Let me go with Sean Mannion.
Oh, so you even have Mannion getting drafted?
Yeah, I think he'll get drafted late on size alone, but he'll get cut pretty quick.
Now, one more other one here. 2016. Is this obviously, before declarations and things of that nature? Does this class offer a lot more potential?
Oh, absolutely. 2016 is loaded. I know everybody says that every year, but this class really is. You got Gunnar Kyle, you got potentially Jeremy Johnson at Auburn, Jared Goff. I'm not sure if I already mentioned Gunnar Kyle. And there's a sleeper over there at North Dakota State and Carson Wentz. You also got Christian Hackenberg potentially. So there's a lot of potential for this coming class.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one other thing. Now, as far as, I know you obviously, with the measurable in your charts, what are you getting from just film on these guys? I mean, are you looking for leadership skill? Are you looking how the guy commands the huddle? Give me some things that you've taken away just from tape, and it's, not necessarily charting stuff that, you've taken an eye to on a certain guy or two.
Well, I mean, with these guys, you're looking for placement. You're looking for zip. You're looking for placement. You're looking for how they, are they leading the field? Where are they putting the ball? Not all balls that are caught. And I think completion percentage is a measurement of accuracy because it's anything but. Where are they putting these balls? Is this guy throwing high over the middle? That's a risk for interception. Is he dropping the ball in? Is he hitting the window throws? Is he putting his receiver in the best position to get yardage after the catch? I'm looking for where the ball is placed. A guy like, for instance, Dak Prescott, who would also be in next year's class, he reminds me of Taj Boyd. He's just shotgunning the ball all over the field and hoping his receivers can make a play on the football. You don't want to see that. You want to see guys putting it on the receivers, putting it in the right spot, making it easy for them to catch and making it easy for them to cover up or to turn upfield and get yardage.
Okay, now give me two guys, just who you've studied, because I know you've gone back for a while. I believe the first year was what we went with Leaf and Manning, right? It was first year when you actually started? Yeah, that was the first year
I did this, yes.
Okay. Give me some, under-heralded guys over the years who you really liked, and sadly it just never turned out to be anything for him.
Brian Brohm would be one. I big time whiffed on Brian Brohm, but then again, so did a lot of people. Mike McMahon, I think, is the biggest whiff I had. I thought Mike McMahon was going to be a 10-year Pro Bowler. I thought he was going to come out and put the league on fire. He did not. He wound up going to Detroit, spent a little stint in Philadelphia, played okay, nothing special, and washed out of the league after a few years.
Okay, now if you were kind enough to take the hit on some losses, give me a couple of wins.
I had a first-round grade on Russell Wilson. Drew Brees was my top-rated quarterback that year when everybody was on Vic. I had Phillip Rivers as the top quarterback in that draft class. I think those would be some major hits there.
Okay, absolutely. Ben, we appreciate the time here. Just one more thing now. Let's get into the show a little bit. How much fun you having? What are you learning as far as the radio industry and being in that aspect?
I'm having a lot of fun. I think the main thing I'm learning is having to figure out a way to relate what I'm saying on different levels of knowledge. Be able to drop certain tidbits here and there, but at the same time make sure that it's accessible enough for the layman who listens to the show.
And let everybody know how many nights a week and what time can they catch you on out there?
Yeah, absolutely. We're on 5 nights a week, 8 to 10 p.m. Mountain Time on 94.1 FM Denver, 96.9 Boulder, and AM 1550 on the Front Range. And you can stream us at milehighsports.com.
All right, Ben. Mr. Allbright, obviously, Ben, appreciate you so much for the time, agreeing to do this for me here today. Any parting shots? Anything you want to close here with?
Don't be an idiot on social media. What do you know, kids?
Absolutely. And if you are, guess what? Ben will be the one that'll ruin the party for you.
Sometimes.
Ben, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, brother. Take care.
Thanks for listening to Football Convos. For more football conversations, visit footballconvos.com or visit us at iTunes.